Welcome to Coffee and Coaching with Caryn. Grab your favorite mug, sit back, and enjoy. Now here's your host, Caryn Fitzgerald.
Good morning and welcome to Coffee and Coaching with Caryn. I am your host, Caryn Fitzgerald. And today I am talking with Andrea Waltz, and she is the co-author of Go for No. Yes is the destination, no is how you get there. And along with her husband and business partner, Richard Fenton, Andrea has made her mission to liberate people from fears of failure and rejection, sharing an entire new mindset about hearing the word no. So, good morning, Andrea. Thank you so much for joining me.
Hey, Caryn, it's great to be with you this morning.
I love the word no.
Well, you're one of the few, because most people hate the word no.
Oh, no is good. So let's get right to it. What does it mean to go for no in business?
So the whole premise of Go for No is that we have all been taught as good business people, and this started when we were children, to be successful, to go for yes, to get the sale, all of that. And so now, as adults in business, we continue that thought process of being successful and getting to yes and all of that stuff. The problem is what happens when we have that go for yes mindset, and that is that we actually tend to, and it's kind of a counterintuitive philosophy, we actually tend to limit our performance. Our focus on just getting yes oftentimes leads to mediocre activity because we just focus on the things that we think people will say yes to, the opportunities we think will say yes to, avoiding all those opportunities to hear no. And actually, when you intentionally increase your no's, so you go out of your way to intentionally increase the number of times people say no to you, say in a sales transaction, or maybe getting a big client or getting a big customer, what we call a big no. When you avoid those opportunities, you therefore avoid opportunities to hear yes. So the entire premise of Go for No is, I guess you could say, a philosophy around failing your way to success. That is, be more successful by being willing to fail and being willing to hear no more often, because when you do that, the yeses will show up at your door, oftentimes in greater quantities than you could have imagined.
I love that. And I'm thinking here, we probably need to keep this away from children.
Exactly. Yes, because they're so good at it and they haven't been beaten down by life and everything else. And I have people tell me all the time, oh, my kids are so good at this. They will, and they are good at it. They're so tenacious. And when a kid, of course, wants something, and you tell them no, they're not thinking, oh, wow, mom just told me no. They're thinking, oh, there's the initial no that I just got out of the way. So now I'm going to get crafty and creative and figure out how to go about this differently, whether it's ask in a different way, ask later on, wait a couple seconds and ask, and so Caryn, I'm not saying that people should become spoiled brats or become, that obnoxious child when that kid just wants what they want in that moment. But we as adults, I think we've let a lot of that tenacity get lost, sometimes to such an extent because of fear of rejection and that fear of failure, that it's just, we don't ever do that. And so there's got to be a happy medium there.
I totally agree. So let's take a step back real quick. Tell us a little bit about how you became the author of a #1 best-selling book, Go for No. How did you fall into this, and how did you fail forward into this?
Yeah, we did. Absolutely. Well, it all started when my business partner and husband and I decided to launch our company. We were in corporate jobs and we had a lot of ideas and concepts that we wanted to share, which the company was kind of like, we're really not interested. So we said, well, if we go out on our own, we could probably be outside speakers, outside trainers, and share some of these concepts. And that's what we did. We launched our business in the very, very late 90s. And we actually were pretty successful. We did sales training and customer service and management training, and we focused just on retail companies. And our marketing plan was to write a book. So we wrote a little book called Unlocking the Secrets of Retail Magic, which did really well. We've sold many thousands of copies. I'm guessing probably somewhere around 50,000 copies of that book over the years. And then after a few years, our customers said, we love the go for no idea was our customers' favorite. Everybody loved that idea. So we thought, okay, well, the other book did well. Let's write a book just on go for no, just taking this little idea and kind of blowing it up into a fable. So we made this 80-page fable and used it kind of as our marketing piece, but it's also obviously a product. It's, a book for sale, but it was a great door opener to get new customers and new clients. And that's what we did with that as well. And I think the book has sold well over the years because, a couple things. One, it's short, it's small. I think people like those kind of books. It's a fable, that helps. And it's taken us a long time, Caryn. I mean, when that book first came out, I have to tell you, it did not do well. In fact, talk about failing. I mean, we almost gave up on it. We were like, this is not, when we released it, before actually the day that we weren't even on Amazon wasn't really doing the whole book thing yet so much. And it just kind of fell flat. And we were like, well, whatever kind of happens. We'll just see how it does. And a couple things happened. We had a guy call us who said, I read your book. I loved it, but you guys have the worst cover in publishing history. So if you can change the cover, I will buy 5,000 copies. And we said, absolutely, we can change the cover, not a problem. So that was a big transitioning point, and we kind of got our confidence back with that phone call because we, unfortunately, being the persistence and don't give up people, we had kind of lost our persistence and given up a little bit. So that was a big turning point for us where we said, okay, we're going to get behind this book. We're going to make this a project. And to this day, I'm still sharing the message. That phone conversation with that particular person was now, it's been probably 8 years or something like that. And I'm still out there sharing the message because I'm passionate about it. I believe in it. And it's just, when you write a book, I think too many people give up too soon on promoting. They kind of move on to the next thing.
That I totally agree with, and your message is so valuable and so important, which is why 15 years later, you guys are still here sharing it because it just becomes more relevant every day.
Mm-hmm.
So before we go to break, I have a question for you. If you only get no and you're focused on the go for no, how do you get a yes?
That's a great question. I think a lot of people might feel that way. Like, okay, are you trying to get no's? And if you're only getting no's, what do you do? Ultimately, getting no's is a great way to learn. And I think a lot of times people want to, perfect their presentation and do everything they can to get a yes. But sometimes what you have to do is just jump into things, make those phone calls, make those presentations, try to get an appointment with someone, whatever the case may be, to learn where you might be falling down and to maybe get coaching and to get help and on, communication and selling skills. So it's not that you'll always get no, but by starting and being willing and able to get those no's allows you to start to get those yeses, if that makes sense.
It makes perfect sense. And one of my favorite stories, I had a client who joined with business, and we were talking, and she said she wasn't interested in doing presentations. She just wanted to watch. And I said to her one day, I said, Sally, when are you going to jump in and do a presentation? And she looked at me and she said, Caryn, as soon as I get as good at it as you are, then I'll do it. And I just chuckled, and I said, okay, well, let's map this out. And by the time we finished mapping it out, we realized that I had done something like 47,000 presentations over the years. Mm. And so that reframed it a little bit for her, and she went, oh, so you weren't always good at it? And I said, oh, no. I said, I've had about 45,000 really bad ones.
Right.
So jump right in, get a bunch of no's, and we'll go. And you know what? That's exactly what she did. And it was eye-opening for both of us because neither one of us had realized that I had done that many presentations. She didn't realize it could take that many presentations.
Yes, I love that. That's a great story.
Yes, it's extremely powerful. So the go for no, absolutely. We're going to take a quick break. And when we come back with Coffee and Coaching with Caryn, we're going to learn more about failure and its relationship to success.
Stay tuned. Coffee and Coaching with Caryn will be back after these messages.
Need a little more happiness in your life? Here you go. The Happiness Recipe Podcast to the rescue. Listen each week as June Klein and Sandy Weaver Carmen share wit, wisdom, and wonderful food with their guests. Guaranteed to add happiness to your life. happinessrecipe.net.
Yo, attention authors, share your work on Coffee and Book Chat. Book reviews, author interviews, blog posts all about you and your book. Visit coffeeandcoachingradio.com for details today.
Are you looking for quality entertainment and activities for the entire family? Then come on down to the Plaza Theater Company and Plaza Academy Dance Studio, located in Cleburne, Texas. The Plaza Theater Company is an award-winning community theater that presents 10 productions a year, performing every single weekend. If you have a child that enjoys acting, dancing, or singing, then you can enroll them in the Plaza Academy Dance Studio. For more information, visit plaza-theater.com or call 817-202-0600.
Welcome to Coffee and Coaching with Caryn. Grab your favorite mug, sit back, and enjoy. Now here's your host, Caryn Fitzgerald.
We are back with Coffee and Coaching with Caryn, and my guest today is Andrea Waltz, and she is the co-author of Go for No. And this is a #1 best-selling book on Amazon's selling list, and it's remained in the top 20 of sales books for over the last 3 years. It's a definite must for your library. So, Andrea, we were talking about failure before the break and getting the no's. Well, let's talk about failure and its relationship to success. Can you explain what that relationship is and why it's important for us?
Absolutely. So in the book, what we talk about is we make a deep connection between getting a no and failing, because I think as entrepreneurs and business people, it doesn't really matter kind of where you are coming from, that desire to not fail, that desire to be perfect, not have somebody reject you, not look like a failure in front of your colleagues is so big these days. And so what we try to do is give people a different model and different way of thinking. So instead of saying, okay, your job is to avoid failure at all costs, meaning avoid getting those no's, since we're now telling people, hey, you're gonna start increasing your no's, just go for it, be willing to hear a no, want to hear a no. If it's, something that could turn into a huge opportunity, want to hear that and understand that failure is part of the process. So it's really trying to reprogram how people think about failure, and to show them its relationship to success. I mean, everybody who is in business, and you look at the billionaires, the Mark Cubans and Richard Bransons of the world, they love failure and they court it and they talk about it, and it seems to us like, oh yeah, it's easy for them, they're gazillionaires or whatever, and it doesn't affect them. And yet emotionally, I'm sure that failures always affect them, but they understand that they have to fail, they're gonna get rejected, they're gonna have stuff not work out, but they move through it because they know that's what it takes to be successful. And so that's that relationship of when we start talking about and telling people, hey, go for no, we really help them understand that the mindset is you're gonna have to fail more to succeed. That's the relationship between failure and success.
You know what? That is the most amazing, succinct way I've ever heard it put. I love it, because we have to fail forward. None of us are miracles where we can wake up one day and go, yes, I am a multi-gazillionaire with a Fortune whatever company, and I look perfect, I feel perfect. There's no such thing as perfection, and it all comes down to those daily action steps and failing forward.
Absolutely.
So with that, are there different levels of failure?
There are, and we talk about that as well. And it's funny because I just said willing and then wanting. The levels basically are, one is the ability to fail. That's easy. It's where we all start. And a lot of people just don't move through that from that ability. You know, they can fail, but the idea of failing is horrible, you know, so they do everything within their power to not fail. So they procrastinate on trying things because they don't want to fail. They don't, maximize their sales because they don't want to hear that big no. And then the next level is really the willingness. So it's somebody listening to a show like this and saying, okay, I can try that. I'm willing to hear a no. And then the next level is the wantingness, the saying, you know what, I haven't heard no this month or this week, and saying, I'm going to do something daring. I'm going to call a big client. I'm going to follow up with somebody who told me no in the past, whatever the case may be, and try to get that no, which oftentimes, in the most surprising of ways, again, turns out to be a yes. But because we don't typically try those things and make those attempts, we never know, right? So that's those are really the power layers. There is the willingness and then the wantingness. The last two are really, one is about failing faster. That's level 4, is fail faster. And then level 5 is failing as a team. So it's sales teams who all go for no together, even innovators, the Silicon Valley companies who all are trying and experimenting and creating together and failing, and then eventually creating something amazing that happens through team failure.
And so we all have to celebrate our no's, right? Are those wins that we celebrate?
Exactly. Celebrating no's is so key, because if you berate yourself, which a lot of us typically do when we live in the go for yes world, where we, berate ourselves and, oh, I can't believe I got a no, and that's horrible. And yes, it is not the result you want in that moment. If you're counting on it financially, if it was going to lead to big things, I understand it's disappointing. And believe me, I get plenty of no's too. But the key is to quickly pick yourself up and say, but I did it. I was in action. I tried. And now I'm going to try something else. And to really bounce back quickly, but celebrate your activity is so key.
And, there's always celebrating with food.
Absolutely. And I'm a big proponent of that.
Party time. So
yes.
One of the big things that people deal with on a daily basis is fear. So in sales, you're going for no. What about that fear of rejection? How do people get over that?
Yeah, that is so tricky, because it's and the cliche answer, and I hate to say it, but I've got to kind of lay this foundation, is the only thing that gets rid of the fear is, of course, action. But how do you take action if you're fearful? It's this chicken or the egg thing. Unfortunately, the fear does not go away readily, and a lot of times it takes multiple actions over a period of time to kind of alleviate that fear. But once you take the action, a lot of times your self-confidence is boosted, if just for a little bit, to show that you didn't die, you survived. You survived that failure, that no. And so the antidote really is taking that action. And I think kind of the fun part, and I'm glad you brought up the celebrating no, is that when you can celebrate it, you can kind of take the sting out of it and say, hey, I was in action. Hopefully that makes it a little less devastating, so that you can do it again, get into activity again, keep your confidence up, keep your head up and your attitude up. And when you do that, that fear will eventually start to subside. But, it's avoiding anything that we fear. Never helps get the fear out of your system. It's kind of like, well, I hate to bring this up, but I think about spiders. I hate spiders. I hate them.
I'm with you on that.
I actually went next door to a neighbor's house one time and asked the person to come in and kill a spider for me because my husband wasn't home. So, eventually I said, okay, Andrea, it's time. You're like in your mid-30s. You have to get this skill and kill your own spiders. Well, that just... Eventually you can't have somebody else do it for you. You've got to do it yourself. You've got to take the action. And then, of course, I learned that I survived, and the spider that I thought would turn into like a 6-foot giant monster and bite off my arm. Never did. So, it's just that, but those are the movies that we play in our head. Doesn't go away until we try it.
Fear is just perception. And you are so right. We just have to jump on through it. And I'm there with you on spiders, and then snakes are the other one, but that's a whole other topic.
Oh, I know. Yes, another show.
We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to learn ways for implementing these ideas and these strategies. So we'll be right back with more Coffee and Coaching with Caryn after these messages.
Stay tuned. Coffee and Coaching with Caryn will be back after these messages.
Hey Lily, do you have lines, wrinkles, or low energy?
Yeah, I do.
Well, change it all now. Look and feel younger from the comfort of your own home today.
How?
Visit 10yearsyoungernow.com for your free personal consultation.
Thanks, guys.
You're welcome.
Looking to monetize your passions? Ready to get paid for doing what you love? Contact Caryn at coffeeandcoachingradio@gmail.com and get creative strategies for developing income while doing what you love.
Dreaming of turning your book into an audiobook? Make it happen. More and more people are discovering the joy of audiobooks. They should be discovering you. Our professional personal service gives you just the audio product you've dreamed of. Check us out, voiceworkondemand.com.
Welcome to Coffee and Coaching with Caryn. Grab your favorite mug, sit back, and enjoy. Now here's your host, Caryn Fitzgerald.
We are back with Coffee and Coaching with Caryn, and my guest today is Andrea Waltz. She is the co-author of the bestseller Go for No, and we have been talking about failing forward and celebrating your wins, even though they're no's, those are wins. So Andrea, before the break, we were talking about ways to fail forward, ways to get the no, and the relationship between the no and failure and success. So what do you suggest? What are some, what do you suggest? I'll just go that way. Ideas and strategy for implementing these strategies.
Yeah. The first thing, Caryn, we always suggest is to kind of take a step back and create a no awareness. And what I mean by no awareness is to kind of see where you are. And one of the fun things we have at our website, which I know we'll talk about later, but we have a unscientific quiz. I will admit that right now, but we developed a 20-question quiz called the No Quotient to see where people are, in their attitudes about failure and success and rejection and all of these things, to give people kind of a sense of their philosophies and how they relate to our philosophies. And of course, we're not saying that we have the perfect way, but from in our world and our perception from a go for no standpoint is what we're talking about. So people can come take that quiz. And I think it's important to create this no awareness to see kind of where you are in the process. Are you someone who sometimes I meet people and they say, oh, I have no problem with no. I hear no all the time. It doesn't faze me. And other people, I met this young woman not too long ago and she said, oh, I don't like rejection at all. I'm so nervous. I don't even like to send emails because I'm afraid the person will send back a negative response. So, that's, you get things from either end and everything in between. So to really think about where you are on the spectrum, kind of get honest with yourself. And then, start working to change that. One of the things we suggest to implement is to set a goal for the number of no's you're going to collect. And you can do this monthly, weekly, daily. Sometimes it's fun just to start with a daily no goal. So you could set a goal and say, all right, well, I'm not a person who gets no a lot, so I'm going to try for one today. And just, maybe call somebody that you think you were had said no in the past, or send a follow-up email to somebody. And no response is not a no, by the way. We are looking for solid, good no's. But do what you can to try to get a no, and it really kind of makes it fun. It makes it into a game. You can celebrate it, and then again, then the next day you may say, okay, yesterday was easy. I got one. I survived. So now I'm going to try two. And Caryn, I'm telling you, people come back to me with great stories all the time about how they find it's actually kind of hard, when they start going for no, that they're starting to get yeses.
our batting average improves. I think that's what they call it, the batting average. I'm not a baseball person, so I don't know that much about it. But I know that when I started in business many years ago, I got a lot of no's. And as I kept failing forward and as I got better and more comfortable, I found that for every 10, it went from 9 no's down to about 7, down to about 5. And, there are days when I can't get a no for anything. So I keep trying and, eventually one shows up. But it's our batting average.
Oh, absolutely. Exactly. And so the number, you're right. The number of times that you do hear no will eventually go down. And then from there, you can start saying, okay, well, now that they're going down, now I can, start challenging myself different ways, going after big no's or, doing things that are in kind of playing in a bigger pond or on a bigger field, to use your analogy. But you don't get there without, in order to be great, you have to be good. In order to be good, you have to be fair. And in order to be even fair, you've got to be bad. That's where we all start, is starting bad. So it's kind of a fun way to do it. And you're so right. It is your batting average. And even the best batters, are 3 for 10. So I think that's where we all tend to fall.
Yeah, that's about the good average, 3 for 10.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So there's always those negative Nellies. So what do you do about people who only want to think positive and they might see this as a negative idea?
Exactly. And we have people like that who think, well, gosh, I want to think positive. I want to say that all there is yes in the world, and that's what I want to manifest, and that's what I want to bring forward. And I get that. I'm a law of attraction person. That makes a lot of sense. So there's nothing about this philosophy where you're putting out negative energy. If anything, it's the opposite. It's the energy that I put out, the internal thought process, is always one of enthusiasm and excitement. I'm not dialing the phone or sending out a package or an email thinking, okay, it's going to be a no, and I sure hope it's going to be a no. It's not about hoping and wishing and praying for a no, but it's about saying, I'm so excited because I'm sending out these 10 packages and, one of these could turn into a yes. And so, but 10 of them could be no's too. The point is, I'm just excited about being in activity. And really, if you have a good mindset that says the no's are out there, we don't know where, as much as we don't know where the yeses are, which means we have to share our story with as many people as we can, as fast as we can, in the best way. Ask questions, engage people that could be good business partners with us, and let the chips fall where they may, but to understand that we're empowered by this philosophy, and it's to remove the fear of the no, not to try to get the no, if you know what I mean, deep down inside.
I do. The focus is on just bringing something better to more people, and we're going to go through the no's and we're going to get to the yes eventually, and it's all going to fall into place.
Exactly.
So is there anything that we missed, or anything else that you'd like to share today? This has been very valuable and very powerful information.
The only thing I'd like to mention is that, it's a life philosophy. So it's definitely a business philosophy, sales philosophy. But I like to always tell people, you can use this in every area of your life. So if there's something that you want to ask for, it's all ultimately comes down to asking, right? So if there's something you want to ask for, and in the past you maybe would have stopped yourself and said, well, I'm not going to ask because I'm sure the answer is no. Now with the Go for No philosophy, the idea is no, just ask. You never know. It could be a yes. If it's a no, fine, no big deal, but it could be a yes. So definitely ask.
Well, I'm going to ask, how can people connect with you?
Great. Everybody should come to goforno.com, just like it sounds, GOFORNO.com. We've got the No Quotient quiz and videos and different things people can engage with. So that's the spot.
That's the spot. And we will post that on the website. Andrea, it's been a pleasure. We've done the coaching part. So let's talk coffee. What's your favorite coffee drink?
Yeah, my favorite coffee drink actually has turned into, it used to be a skim mocha, but now my favorite coffee drink is actually a simple vanilla Starbucks made here on my Keurig machine. So it's pretty straightforward.
Oh, sounds delicious. Thank you so
Yes.
much for being there. Ladies and gentlemen, you have been listening to Andrea Waltz of Go for No on Coffee and Coaching with Caryn. Thank you so much for listening, and we will see you next week.
You've been listening to Coffee and Coaching with Caryn.
Thank you so much for joining us. Tune in next time for more Coffee and Coaching with Caryn.
Until then, visit us at coffeeandcoachingradio.com.
Caryn Fitzgerald is an author, speaker, business strategist, and leadership coach. Connect with her at coffeeandcoachingradio.com.